seconds, and then we're going to hit go live on the gimmick.
Oh my god. Go live.
Hello, Internet. This is Zach Ritchie, longtime credit expert here at Fund&Grow, and I am absolutely thrilled to the gills to be discussing with you once again our YouTube monthly live. Now, joining me on this month's episode, making her broadcast debut around these parts, I would say someone else who is just as tenured, if not more so than myself, in the world of Fund&Grow and credit, personal and business and otherwise. Please give a warm welcome to the Fund&Grow monthly YouTube live to Liana Alexander.
Hello, thank you so much for my beautiful introduction. I will be your marketing coordinator, producer for today. I will probably mostly be your disembodied voice coordinator, producer, all of that fun stuff. But I will be running support for Zach today. So as we get into our topics, if anybody has any questions in the chat, just let us know. If there's anything you want us to cover or go more in depth about, we are happy to do so. So without further ado, let's talk some business.
I totally agree. So taking a look here. So if you're new to the channel, we produce weekly content. And one of the videos that we released recently was the #1 reason your business has stopped growing. And in that, it discussed, basically techniques on considering what you offer, researching your competition, analyzing the data that you get from sales or from leads, and strategically placing your ads. Because we were really taking a look at some of the feedback that we've gotten from various business owners and soon-to-be entrepreneurs. Once you kick the business off officially, it feels like that's the toughest thing, is just getting started. But once you've actually launched your business and you're up and running, the next step is, okay, how do you grow? If you're not growing, you're dying. That's the old adage. Mm-hmm. And so it's one of those cases where you really want to kind of focus on whatever sort of feedback you can get. Both Liana and myself have dabbled in being entrepreneurs in our own rights. And, especially when you're first starting out, getting any kind of true feedback from potential clients or clients can feel insurmountable, but especially in that video, we go over a lot of ideas on how best to really approach the subject and really, try to break out of that initial cycle of, okay, you got started, you're doing the basics here, now how do you actually grow from this? And so I really enjoyed the video. I thought it was really informative. So if you haven't gotten a chance to take a look, please do. As I said, we do content every week on a variety of different subjects, and just like Liana mentioned with this very call, we're always open to feedback. So if there's any topics or anything like that you as either a credit user or a business owner feel unclear on, or feel like you need more explanation on, that's why we're here. This is to be sculpted somewhat by you as a viewer in terms of, what are you really struggling with? I mean, how many times have we discussed, the differences between, let's say business credit and corporate credit, and it's second nature to us because we've been knee deep in it for over a decade.
Oh, absolutely.
But every day we get questions on, well, wait a minute, what is the difference between that?
And just like a lot of things, when it comes to business and your marketing, and to hit on that market research video, nothing's a one and done.
Right.
When you start your business, you're excited. You're like, all right, I got my branding, I've got my website set up, your social medias, all of that fun stuff. Now go.
Right. Go.
That's it.
Populate.
You're never going to have just one product or just one service, or even the exact same product or service throughout the whole course of your business. That's always going to change and grow and evolve. No aspect of that is a one and done, where once you've released a course or you've created your ebook or anything like that, none of that, it shouldn't be stagnant, because there's always going to be room for growth, room for change, adjustments once you get feedback from people and things like that. So it's important to look at those things and continue that market research and be aware.
Well, one of the elements that was pointed out in that, which I have to give credit, that the script for that particular video was drawn up by our own Rebecca, one of the elements that I really liked about that is the idea of really kind of checking in with your competition, because oftentimes we find that in businesses you want to stay in your lane so much so that you're missing out on what are some of the mistakes your competition are making that you could be avoiding by taking a look at that, not copying them. But if you, let's say you're doing like goods or services or something tangible, and you see, oh, well, here's, a competitor of mine who's doing something similar, and they ran into shipping as a problem, then you would immediately, by really investigating that, you can say, oh, well, I will know to get that in order so that I'm not running into the same pitfalls. We've seen countless examples of huge companies that ignore competition because they don't want to give them credence or make them come across like, oh, they're actually important. You want to stay the course and focus, which is fine, but just because you're doing, a little bit of digging on what is my competition doing differently or the same as I, doesn't mean you have to necessarily put them on a billboard of like, yep, they are exactly on par with me. You could buy something from me or something from them, and it doesn't matter, No,
absolutely, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be something that they're doing wrong, but just
right.
something that they're lacking that you can pick up the slack.
Very true.
If it is a product or something like that, if it's drop shipping, and you go, well, that's really impersonal now, because a lot of people understand, drop shipping is coming from God knows where,
right?
And things like that. But if you can send something with a personal touch, like, not to toot my own horn, I run an Etsy side business, but all of my orders come with a handwritten thank you note. And
right.
I can't tell you how many reviews I've gotten that people have said, oh, this was so wonderful, it came with a little note. Like, people mention that specifically. And it's just those little touches that you can see if your competition is lacking in that, then you can utilize that as your strength.
Let's actually want to dig into this a little bit, because we haven't gotten a chance to really talk to like a business owner in quite some time. So not to put you on the spot or anything like that, but one of those other elements of including something personalized in what you're sending out, if it is something tangible or even intangible, there's plenty of services that we've helped work with or something along those lines, and they'll send their people gifts or something like that. It's just a thank you. But let's take the going above and beyond for business out of it for a moment. How many times, be honest, how many times has sending something personalized along with whatever good you were sending somebody, how many times has that actually saved your bacon if maybe something took a little longer than you were anticipating to get out the door, or whatever the 1,000 other problems might be? How many times has sending a personalized touch end up saving you overall?
Oh, it's been huge. There's definitely times where either I was waiting for, a piece of their order to come in or a supply to make it exactly part of that. And it took a little longer, and obviously I communicate that with people, but when you send those little extra touches, whether it just be something silly like a sticker or like that personal note, those extra little touches go like, hey, I feel you, like, I care about it, and so a lot of times that kind of thing can carry and sort of like smooth over other things that may have been a problem or they may have had an issue with, because you're already sort of compensating for that. I'm never against the idea of going the extra mile.
Right.
I'm in a couple of Facebook groups on for like Etsy support sellers and things like that, and it's like, what are your tactics for this, or how do you handle customers like that? And so people have asked, like, oh, do you include like extra goodies and stuff with your orders? And I was so surprised how many people were like, no, I don't, absolutely not, I'm not spending money on that. And I was like, why wouldn't you? Like, I've almost gotten so conditioned to it to now when I get when I buy something from Amazon or whatever, or another seller, and there's just nothing else in the box, you're like, oh, I was kind of hoping for something nice.
So it's great that you mentioned that, because that was going to be my next point was, if you are, an independent business, if you're an entrepreneur just starting out a small business, you have to think about what is separating you from a big box store or a chain store. What is separating you from Amazon or whatever? And the idea is, maybe Amazon, I was just about to say maybe Amazon can get whatever it is the next day, but even that's not true anymore.
Yeah, say Prime ain't priming anymore.
Yeah, Prime's definitely not priming anymore. But they're never going to send anything personalized.
Yeah.
They're not going to go that extra mile because it's all about numbers and getting the things at the door. So, in addition to A, it gives you a little wiggle room in terms of if things took a little longer than you'd like, but also B, it helps you to stand apart. It helps you to really showcase what makes you different and why people should be supporting small business as opposed to giant conglomerates and all that.
Absolutely, and it's been nice to see the shift lately where the focus has become the customer experience. Mm-hmm. And that's, I feel like, what is going to set small businesses apart from, either big box stores or just more impersonal services where it's just one of those like, oh, you can get this from somebody overnight, whatever. That's great. Maybe the turnaround's faster, like you said, even with Amazon, but you're not going to get that really personal service or that really personal touch in any of that. Like, the customer experience is what is going to set you apart.
And I would venture to guess that in many cases, I think the average consumer is going to appreciate that true customer experience over speed. Now, of course, if it's like, I'm ordering medication or something, speed is ultimately going to be most important.
Now.
But if it's like, oh, hey, I bought this t-shirt or something like that, if there was something else, if there was some little added extras, little added thank yous to it, I think that's going to go a lot further than just, oh, I shipped it out the next day. I think that's going to help people to remember your company. And that's ultimately what you want, especially in the early stages. You want to be memorable in the right ways to customers and clients. And going those extra miles where you can is going to help make that much more of a possibility versus just, hey, it's just cold and corporate and you're just getting sent what you're getting sent. And that's it.
No, absolutely. And there's a lot to be said for creating recurring customers as opposed to just continuously trying to find new people. You know, obviously you always want to try to find new customers and new buyers or new students for your course or anything like that. But a big part of it too is making your current people happy, the people who have already been willing to take that leap for you, who have already been willing to give you their money. Like, yeah, let's keep it going, maintain that relationship.
And that was really one of the big points of this video, which is what got us on this topic in the first place, is considering what you truly offer. Is it just the black and white, hey, this is all we sell and that's it? Or is it a true customer experience? And really kind of taking a moment to analyze the data, what's resonating with people, what's not resonating with people. There is a little element of patience. We fall victim to that all the time in marketing and advertising and all that is, you know, you want something done immediately, you want the results immediately, and unfortunately it doesn't always work that way. But, you know, you want to really take a look at what is the information that you're getting. Are people leaving you better reviews because you're going the extra mile? Or is it not making a difference? Or, you know, whatever the case may be, you got to try to analyze whatever scraps of feedback you're getting in your beginning stages and even beyond the beginning stages. A lot of the video also talks about, you know, okay, let's say you've made it through your first year or first 5 years, and now are you still growing? Are you still finding new funding coming in? Or like you said, are you getting new clients all the time, or are you relying on repeat clients? You know, what is the case? We've had other businesses that go out to you know, big networking events or big conventions and whatnot, and they make a little bit of a splash, but then there's never any follow-up. And then it's like, okay, well, are you looking to build a network here, or are you looking to just one and done and be gone and not call them the next day? So with all that in mind, that video I think did a really great job. We're going to be focusing on startups for the next couple of weeks, just because that is such a big demographic for people looking to get into business credit and people who really need business credit. So startups is going to be kind of our flavor of the month coming up. But we are open to any, you know, industry, any demographic, anybody who's got questions, both in the chat now and also in general, comments, subscribes, anything of that nature. Let us know what is really stopping you from reaching the potential that you want to reach. And speaking of potential, I wanted to talk a little bit about a subject we haven't necessarily done a video on specifically, but we've talked about in the premium coaching, which I forgot my plug. At 4:30 today, if you are part of the premium coaching membership with Fund&Grow, our monthly call, our sit down with Vice President Amanda Webster will be at 4:30 at the usual place and time if you are part of that subscription service. Hope to see you there. We'll be going over a lot of different topics. We'll be discussing all about this month's Prosperity Pulse newsletter and what have you. And so really it's coming down to which are you putting more of your focus on? Are you working on your business or are you working in your business? And the idea is the difference is working in your business includes things like setting goals, planning for the future, evaluating your resources, setting up SOPs, basically the bigger picture sort of stuff. Working on your business is that day-to-day grind, putting out fires, working with clients, answering questions, making short-term decisions. You know, the day-to-day operations and minor issues that demand your immediate attention. But if you're only focusing on those kinds of things, that's going to hinder your long-term growth and success. It's really about, making the most of these opportunities that you've got, and, really ensuring that you're paying attention for the long haul, and that it's not just this, like, it's so easy to get in that tunnel vision to where you're only worried about, like, what's happening today. But if you're not laying that groundwork for the future, you are not going to see that growth that you need in order for your business to thrive.
Well, and especially when you're doing most of this yourself, as the solopreneur trend has taken off and things like that, or if you are just running a side hustle that's sort of gaining traction, it's all on you.
Mm-hmm.
It's all you. So there are those days where you're just focused on either getting out orders or interacting with your subscribers and things like that, or like maintaining your courses or launching something new, and you're so focused on working in it and those fires, because that of course takes priority, that working on your business and finding new ways to grow or new things to offer or where else can I take this has to take the back seat.
Right.
And so it's so important to find that balance and find a way to schedule yourself and sort of force yourself to go, okay, I'm only going to dedicate this much time to working in it. I've got to work on it, because I cannot, if you just keep spinning those wheels of doing the day-to-day stuff and doing that like small time kind of projects, you're never going to get to the point where you can hire other people or expand or grow or anything like that, because you're so focused on right now that you can't even look at a long-term picture.
Right, and we've experienced that ourselves in terms of our own projects. When you have to be, with the advent of TikTok and some of these other social media platforms, it's like not only is it enough to be the business owner, but you also have to be the sales team and the marketing department and the talent creation, and the content creating. And it's like if all of that is on your plate, then you're going to struggle to advance and reach where you want to reach, as a business owner. So it's something where really looking at setting those goals, and not just like, I hope I make $1 million, but setting a goal of like, right. I want to hire somebody by X date, or I want to, be able to diversify what we're reaching out to by, X amount of time frame. Those are the sort of ideas to be looking at, not just the tangibles, not just the here and now of, okay, I got to send out these many orders and that's it. Because we've both been in that, not rut necessarily, but that rhythm of just, hey, I'm just worrying about getting everything out the door today, and then I'll start again tomorrow. And it's like, okay, but where's the growth?
Exactly, and those feel like much harsher deadlines, so that's the focus. I was actually thinking about this morning, where I hate deadlines, but it's the only way I function, because if you go, okay, I have an order that needs to be shipped out by Friday, I know that Friday is that deadline.
Right.
Whereas if I'm just setting the goal of, well, I would love to work with a coach or a mentor to figure out new ways or better ways to do what I'm already doing, that's more of like an abstract concept, so it's hard to sort of quantify prioritizing that over your hard deadline. So set those deadlines for yourself. Feel free to make that distinction of like, okay, yes, I've got X amount of things to do, or you've got a closing date of whatever if you're doing real estate or flipping or things like that. But then also set deadlines for yourself. Like you had said, I want to reach X goal in X amount of time. You can be a little more flexible on those deadlines because you're setting them.
Right.
But set the deadline. Like, make yourself take those steps, because if you don't and you keep putting it off, you're never going to get there.
Well, and one of those things that I've seen come up, thanks to TikTok, is sort of this concept of planning around yourself. In terms of, I saw it originally, it was something along the lines of, if you make a lot of commitments, or if you have a lot of ideas but you forget them all the time, that you need to go beyond yourself and go, I'm bringing a notebook with me. And I'm going to scribble down, I'm going to make notes every time I think of something that I need to do. I'm going to make a list. Because just going by, I'll remember when I get home, is clearly not working.
Oh, no, absolutely. I'm the CEO of that. Of like, I'll remember. Guess what? I'm not going to remember.
So, exact same idea. If you go, well, the hard deadline of, I have to get this thing shipped out by Tuesday, or else it's going to look bad. If that's the way to motivate yourself and get you to where you want to be, then maybe the concept of approaching more abstract goals in a more concrete fashion may be the option, maybe the solution you're looking for.
Absolutely.
To really plan around yourself. Because for me, I make a ton of lists, but I don't check them. I write them all down. I go, ooh, that's a lot of things. And then I put them in my pocket and they go in the wash and I never think about them again. So it's one of those cases of like, no, when I get home, I take the list out, I slap it right in front of me. I'm like, what am I getting done now? What am I setting up for the future?
Yeah.
What can I get done now versus I can push off till tomorrow? Whatever the case is, you sometimes have to plan around yourself, especially when it is all on you as a business owner. If it's, hey, I got to take care of inventory, it's so easy to, get locked into concrete where it's like, oh, I have to get inventory done by this day or else it's not going to arrive in time. In fact, I did it last night. I was ordering some shirts, and I said, well, I have to get it done tonight because then that leaves tomorrow for the order to be processed. If I wait until the weekend, when I might, the feeling may
you
wash over me.
You come back around to it.
Right.
Maybe I'll remember.
Then it's like, well, now the order's not going to be there till Monday, and I know that this printing company takes at least 5 days, so now I've pushed it off till next week. It's a mess. So sometimes you have to plan around yourself, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's being self-aware enough to go, this is a shortcoming of mine, and let me plan around this so that I can stop falling into these same traps that are keeping me from the potential that I want or are costing me results. Whether it be more organized. I know that's a very common thing. Now, Liana, speak a little bit on well, you are absolutely the end-all be-all master of the scheduling apps. So, like, for instance, when we're talking about, like, social media and things like that, which we've talked about on our premium coaching calls several times, it can get very overwhelming very quickly when you're like, all right, I have to tweet about this, I have to put this on Facebook. Can I put this on Reddit? ? I don't know if you heard about that this week, but Reddit was releasing this new idea where it was like,
they're messing with their API.
Their API, and it was like, they're going to start charging money to have access to their API, which I don't even know what API fully is. But
I can get into that. Yeah.
But long story short, they were like, hey, we're going to start charging for XYZ.
Yeah.
And so the people who use Reddit were like, yeah, we're not going to stand for that. And so instead, they just went dark. And so Reddit as a platform basically went dark. And so regardless, if you're going, I have to post about my product or service on all of these platforms, and I have to do it every other day or whatever, because as we all know, with social media, YouTube, all of them, it's about consistency.
Oh, absolutely.
That has been the key. If you look back on our YouTube channel over the last 6 months, that has been our number one goal, has been consistency, is to release consistent content every single week. And we've been trying to stick to that as much as possible because that is how you grow organically on the social media front. And I would say that probably could be extrapolated out to full business in general. Staying, if you only release one item a year, it's like, well, how much excitement can you really build off that? But if you're consistently going, hey, every couple of months, here's a new thing, here's a new flavor at the restaurant, here's a new building, whatever, whatever you're doing. But anyway, talk a little bit about the scheduling idea and apps to use for that, because you have become absolutely the queen of scheduling through social media.
Oh, thank you. Well, part of my job here at Fund&Grow is to manage our social medias. So if you've ever commented on our Facebook or replied to us on Instagram, any of that stuff, it has been me. Hi. So we do have a lot of platforms that we're on. We have a lot of audiences because each platform carries its own different audience, things like that.
Right.
So it's a lot. And especially each platform wants you to use all of their tools in order to actually post your content.
Of course.
Yeah, exactly. So anytime Instagram comes out with something new, like when they were really pushing Reels because everybody had to compete with TikTok. Now, if you're not using Reels, they're not even going to look at you. Like the algorithm isn't even going to think about showing your content to anybody. So there's a lot to stay on top of, and they're always changing it. But there are scheduling programs, like we use Loomly recently. We switched to them. Hootsuite's another big one. Buffer's Sendable? I think so. But
if that doesn't exist, you just made it exist.
Right, I'm pretty sure it did. But there are platforms where you can load all of your social media platforms and you can pre-schedule your content. Because I am terrible for myself personally about scheduling my own social media content, ironically, because I do so much of it here. So when it comes time to do it for myself, I'm not about it. So when you pre-schedule your content, that way you can take care of it all in one day for at least a week or two and not have to worry about it. Because like you said, with the consistency, you have to stay in front of people's faces. Everything moves so fast now, from news to content to everything. Even going viral doesn't mean the same thing now as it did 2 years ago.
Very
because
true.
Even if you go viral, a couple million people view it once, and that's it. Like, you're not going to be able to recapture those people unless you go in with a plan. But the API issue is how Reddit connects with those sorts of programs.
Oh, interesting.
Because Twitter did the exact same thing. Elon Musk was like, well, we're going to start charging for our API use. So any of those scheduling programs that have a free option, where it's like, you know, you can connect 3 different social accounts, and usually it's a little more limited for like how much you can schedule. But once they started charging for that, then everybody who had a free plan was like, well, guess what? We can't offer free plans anymore because now we have to pay just to be able to communicate with Twitter.
The opposite of we pass the savings along to you.
Exactly. There is no savings, and it is not being passed on. So that's where those sort of issues come up. And so, yeah, the Reddit community was like, absolutely not. We're not doing that. So good for them.
Right.
But yeah, absolutely. So finding ways to, like you said, work around yourself to know, okay, I'm not good at staying on top of content throughout the week, so let me batch create several posts or, you know, tweets or questions or polls or whatever it is, reels that you're doing, pre-schedule those out, and that way you don't have to worry about that you can maintain your consistency, you can maintain, you know, promoting a new product or service or whatever it is that you're doing, or even if it's just yourself, if you run like a consulting service or something like that, you know, you need to stay consistent with those things, and the scheduling tools are phenomenal in that regard to help you stay on top of that, to stay connected with your audience, to build that community, because as we've seen in the last couple of years, that has been a huge element of marketing is social media based.
Yeah.
You know, people aren't going directly to websites as much anymore. You know, like Google's still a thing, but mostly people are looking for you on Facebook. They're looking for you on Instagram. Like, if you're not utilizing those audiences, there's so much being left on the table.
Yeah, that's a lesson that we've had to learn as a company as well, and we're not immune from that. And really it does come down to just making sure you are in front of the audiences that you should be in front of. We we talk about in that same video I was mentioning earlier about properly placing ads. That it's not enough to just be like, I don't know, I'm advertising. Isn't that enough? Like, well, are you advertising the right people? Are you advertising the right format? Like, you know, if you're I think the example we use in the video, if you're making backpacks that are, you know, high-end whatever, just spamming ads in the general public is not enough. But if you were to make poster ads that you could put up at like a college campus, you are hitting your prime target right there in real time. And so, you know, sometimes it takes a little bit about, like you mentioned earlier, about mentorship. And sometimes it's taking time to really learn what you don't know and really trying to figure out how do you improve what you're running as a business owner and the business in general.
Absolutely. And there will always be an element of trial and error with that, too, especially when it comes to things like social media, to find where your people are. You know, like, I personally am not a Twitter person. I would much rather use Facebook and Instagram. So, like, those are the ads that hit for me. But maybe your audience is on Twitter because they're looking for the news or those, like, bite-sized, like, fast-paced content pieces.
Could be.
You know, then your ads there are going to go a lot further than trying to just dump money at Meta and pray that they're putting it in front of a couple of people who might care.
Right. And truly, to touch on that, you know, just dumping money into ads in general is not the answer, because a lot of these platforms are all too happy to take your money and not really push in the direction that you're looking for. They're just kind of casting the widest net.
Oh, absolutely.
So going in with a little bit more of a strategy of, like, here's who I'm trying to appeal to, is going to be a key factor in getting the most out of your advertising dollars, and not just, hey, I'm just casting this huge net and hoping for the best. Now, speaking of marketing and hitting the right demographics, one thing I wanted to talk about as well, something that we have experienced firsthand in our own way, is holiday marketing.
Oh, yeah.
Now, anybody who's ever been to a craft store or any kind of you know, retail store, the big box ones, it feels like earlier and earlier now we're getting, you know, into the holidays. You know, it's going to be July coming up here, and people are already preparing for Halloween decorations and Halloween, you know, merchandise.
No, that's the problem. I wish we were preparing for Halloween. We've got Christmas out before we've got Halloween
That's true.
out. There's something wrong with that.
But be that as it may, as obnoxious as that might be when you're seeing that out in the retail world, the point that we're trying to make is you need to get that plan in early, even if you're not going to go, hey, we're doing a Halloween sale in July. Because if you put it off to where you're right on the cusp of the holiday season, you're going to be caught on your back foot. It's going to be a situation where, you know, everyone's getting spammed with emails and sales and whatnot, and you suddenly throwing together some kind of, you know, well, it's a 4th of July sale, and dumping it out. It's going to be obvious that it's thrown together. And so it's a case where you want to give yourself adequate time to really come up with a good plan of action and not just throw something hokey together at the last second because you go, oh, oops, was I supposed to do, a sale for this or that or whatever? So, even though, we're getting into the dog days of summer, now is a great time to really start putting some thought towards how are you going to approach the holiday season? Is the holiday season a huge time for you in your business, or is it a downtime? How does Black Friday fit into what you're offering and selling? These are things that you want to start thinking about now so that when you do get close to that go time, you'll already be prepared and you can continue to, work on what you're working on and not have to hit the brakes all of a sudden and go, oh, I can't believe, it's November already and, blah, 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 blah. That's one of those cases of really taking the time, again, like we said before, planning around yourself to really go, okay, I'm going to set a plan to make sure that I am ready when it is time to step up to the plate for this particular demographic. And it's something that easily gets missed.
Oh, absolutely. And me as a person, it's June. I don't want to think about the holiday season.
Right.
That's a year away for me. But as a business owner and as somebody who handles marketing campaigns, that's something we have to start planning now. If it is a slow season, how are you going to help carry through that? If it is a big season for you, especially for anybody in a retail space, start building your lead list now. So that way when you're hitting those sale emails or if you're launching a social media campaign, you've got new people that you're marketing to and not just the same handful of people you've had on your list for the last couple of years. You want to lay those building blocks and set that foundation now so that way when you do execute your holiday marketing, it's effective and it's reaching the maximum amount of people. And it is one of those things, like you said, you don't want to be caught unawares or throw something together last minute because it's not going to be as effective. And then you're leaving money on the table when it's especially something that should be a really big season for you because you were distracted or put it off or, well, it's way too soon to start thinking about that. I promise you it's not. It feels like it is. I promise it's not. You're going to want to start getting those things laid out now. What worked for you last year? What do you want to change from this year? What emailed subjects captured your people best? Like, what were your click rates? How can you replicate that? Or how can you change it to make it better this year? All of those things start thinking about those now things.
Yeah, 100%. And, for as much as, like you said, we don't want to necessarily go, oh, no, the winter holidays are coming. We all have experienced time seemingly moving faster here. And so, it feels like 2 weeks ago it was January and now we're already in the summer. Oh. So it's something that we can't avoid it. So why get caught unawares? And instead, let's focus on making the most of these opportunities that we're getting. Now, speaking of making the most out of something, I did want to go back and talk a little bit about asking for feedback from clients. In a perfect world, whatever you're providing, whatever service or good you're providing, you would be getting, adequate feedback at all times. People would be like, hey, by the way, just so you know, I'm not going to put you on blast, but this was packaged a little shoddily and it didn't come 100%. I don't want a refund, but that would be wonderful. That's not how the world works, though. And sometimes, as we have found, people are quickest to give feedback and responses when they are feeling the highest amount of emotion, whether that be positive or negative. Since the advent of online reviews, it has been definitively proven that people are 10 times more willing to leave a review if they've had a really negative experience as opposed to a positive. Now, when I say, regularly ask for feedback, go outside of your comfort zone and really try to talk with some of these people who have bought from you, it's not just for good PR. It's not just like, oh, we'd really like it if you said something nice about us. It's really about finding pain points for people. Because oftentimes, if people had like a pretty okay... How many times have we watched, Gordon Ramsay shows where it's like, oh, he goes to a restaurant, the restaurant's struggling, and they talk to the owner, and they go, well, we never have any complaints. Nobody ever complains about the food. And Gordon Ramsay's response is, well, they complained by not coming back. Yeah. That's the complaint. It maybe wasn't egregious enough that they were outraged and flipped the table and said, this is an injustice. No, they ate their food, they left, they looked at each other and went, we're not coming back. That's the true feedback, and that's the one that you don't want to have to deal with. So instead, you're going to have to go outside of your comfort zone. That was one of the biggest things that I learned here at Fund&Grow was the amount of willingness to go and talk to people. Because when I was doing account management, when I was really working on negotiating for people, that was a huge element of it, was you need to talk to the people to get their feedback and find out what's going on. Are they using the funding okay? Or do they have questions about it? Did everything arrive as it was supposed to? These things that people may not jump to mentioning it. They might just go, you know what? Sometimes people can be too nice, is my point, when it comes to feedback, and they don't want to bother you, or they feel like they're, complaining or what have you. So sometimes you have to really pull it out of people. And it may not be the biggest deal in the world. It may be, well, I didn't love the color of XYZ. And you go, okay, great. Doesn't mean you have to throw the whole thing out, but you go, okay, for the next generation of whatever this product is, maybe we shift it a little bit, or maybe we make it a more complementary color, or whatever the case is. Mm-hmm. Looking for that feedback is so paramount. And unfortunately, in many cases, it's not just going to show up naturally. It's going to be something that you really have to pursue people on. Mm-hmm. And don't scare people. Don't throw you better give me feedback on what this is. But it's something that, you are going to have to look for, because that is your truest testament of how you can grow, is what are people saying? How are they feeling when they're receiving your item? And as we said right at the start of the call, if you're going out of your way to create that customer experience, maybe you're finding more positive feedback than negative, and you're on the right track. Then you go, okay, great. This little thing that cost me, 10 cents in bulk on Amazon is the way to go to include in my regularly scheduled item that I'm sending to people, or whatever the case may be. It's something that if you want people to really respond to what you're providing, you got to make it response worthy, and that's the big key here.
Absolutely, and it's not one of those things where you have to individually call every single person who's ever
No,
spent
don't
money with
bother
you.
people.
Right, but it's one of those things where if you notice any store you go to, whether it be Michael's or a restaurant or whatever, Michael's is a craft store if you don't have them, there's always the survey.
Right.
Hey, take the survey, you could win a gift card, or you could get this, or you'll get a discount, or you'll get a free taco. They want that feedback. Now, statistically, not everybody is going to do that. So by spreading it out and asking everybody and offering an incentive, they're at least guaranteeing that a percentage of people are going to fill out the surveys. Because I guarantee you, out of every 100 they send, maybe 10% of people actually go and do it and follow through on the process and put it in their email and take the time to answer all the questions, whatever it is. But it's not just you have to personally reach out to all these people. In other words, to say it doesn't have to be this huge time-consuming thing, but make it accessible and make it so that you have a way to sort of blanket those out or send it to everybody, whether it's automated. I know Trustpilot, for example, we have a lot of our client and customer reviews on Trustpilot, and they push their automations really easy. So you have a way to make it so that it will automatically send an invite once a certain trigger is met, that it'll go, hey, we would love your feedback on this. How was your service? Do you want to share your experience? Good, bad, or otherwise. They want you to be able to hit that because they know that not everybody's going to do it. So, look at those other things. They're doing it for a reason. It's not just for fun or to waste your receipt paper or to make the cashier say another thing to end this transaction. They're really trying to get that feedback for a reason. And so you can do that whether you're a one-person operation or a 100-person operation. That kind of thing is still important to address with all of your customers, clients, students, things like that.
Yeah, and it's one of those cases as well where, just because if you aren't getting automatic feedback from people doesn't mean, I must be doing something right. Mm-hmm. Sometimes people are polite. Sometimes people don't want to raise a ruckus, when it could be something that the next big change that could benefit your business or make you go viral or whatever the case may be could be just around the corner if you reach out for that feedback regularly. And if you do get negative feedback, the idea is to reach out and try to figure out what are the pain points and what can you do to right whatever the wrong may be. Because maybe it is something in your power, maybe it's something out of your power. But to just go, we had to deal with something like that today. We had somebody we were working with and they gave us a lot of attitude in feedback of some kind. We were like, hey, what's going on here? Mm-hmm. And, not finding that pain point and being met with aggression makes you, okay, well, maybe I don't want to do business with this particular person anymore.
Yeah, because now something as small as a simple miscommunication is
right.
blowing up into, hey, you know what? We're terminating this contract.
Right. So it's one of those cases where don't wait for that to be the case. Figure mm-hmm. out, keep that feedback coming. Keep, regularly ask for that sort of thing. So it's just about time for us to wrap up here on our monthly call. So a couple of pluggables here I want to mention. So number one, as I said, we are releasing content on our YouTube. If this is the first time you're watching us, first of all, thank you so much. Please give us feedback. Hey, please give us feedback.
Full circle.
Find out what you want to, let us know what you want to talk about, what you want to learn about, what you want some of our content to be about. We are releasing content every single week. We are doing short form content Mondays and Fridays, and we are doing long form content on Wednesdays. Feel free to follow us on social media, Fund&Grow. And if you are not a part of the premium coaching membership, which is our addendum one-on-one sort of brainstorming, masterminding of business owners, we will be doing our monthly call at 4:30 today. If you're not part of that, you're going to want to go to fundandgrow.com and start digging around about what that bonus is and what that premium membership is about, because that is where a lot of magic is happening here.
We'll put a link in the comments.
Yeah, in terms of talking to business owners and entrepreneurs and really figuring out what are their obstacles, where are we learning, where we need to go from here. So I will see anybody who's a part of that membership. I will see you at 4:30 with Miss Amanda Webster, our vice president. If you are not part of that, tough nuggets. And we will see you next month here on YouTube. And for everybody here, for Liana Alexander, I am Zach Ritchie, and we will see you here next time. Thank you.
Deuces. I can't believe you said tough nuggets.